guys, it's Angelo, and welcome back to the updated Shadow Priest guide for patch 7.2.5. Now, it hasn't been too long since my guide for patch 7.2, but there have been quite a few changes to our gameplay. A shift in important talents, gear, and a slight change in stat priorities. With this guide, you should be more than ready for the Tomb of Sargeras, and will understand how to properly utilize the changes that have come to the spec. If you want to know more about our legendaries and how those have changed, be sure to check out my legendary review for patch 7.2.5 and find out which legendaries are best for you to use. As with all of my guides, of course, we'll be discussing what exactly has changed since last patch, your new stat priority, your talents, as those have also changed, your rotation, and of course your new tier bonus, and how to use it. Now, that being said, of course, my friends, let's go right ahead and have a look. Changes for this patch haven't been overly significant, so we will keep this relatively short. However, Blizzard has been highly emphasizing single target damage this time around, which is pretty good actually. Mind Flay, Mind Blast, and Void Bolt damage have been increased, Mindbender now generates 8 Insanity from previously 4, and Shadow Word Pain damage was increased by 10% as well. These changes buff the Priest in areas where it has proven to be slightly weaker than most of its competition previously, while maintaining the strengths that make the spec so relevant. Even though you will still be very dominant in multi-target cleave fights, your single-target relevance has been significantly increased, especially when looking at our new tier 20 bonus, which we will go into more detail with later. When looking at patch 7.2 and 7.2.5 comparatively, our stat priority hasn't really changed, my friends, but has rather shifted slightly. The relevance of haste has become more important, as we now want to go above 30% haste, not only due to the fact that the value it had to our gameplay previously is now even more so, but also because this reduces your global cooldown even further, as well as granting your Shadow Fiend quicker attacks as they scale with haste, which is important when it comes to your Mindbender talent. Especially your Mind Blast, which gets empowered by your new tier set bonus, also synergizes greatly with haste, but of course more on that in literally just a moment. Apart from that, you will still want to go for Critical Strike and Mastery next, with a greater focus on crit this time around though. The reason behind this is that A, it synergizes well with haste and therefore directly with your Auspicious Spirits proc, and B, because Critical Strike and therefore those Auspicious Spirits proc once more lets you remain in Void form for a longer period of time, which of course is something that our gameplay evolves around. This is especially relevant when looking at your tier 20 bonus again. With the increase in Mind Blast damage and Insanity generation, your focus is shifted more towards using it and therefore more shifted towards single target damage. And with Insanity drain reduced by 15% with your 4-set bonus, having a lot of haste and a lot of crit will keep you in Void form for a pretty long time. In order to get the most benefit out of haste, I recommend going for haste until you're at around 13,000 to 14,000 and then going for Critical Strike, while maintaining a solid amount of mastery. Versatility is once more relatively redundant, and you can safely try and avoid the stat, while intellect will be on most of your items either way and should not be prioritized either. Our Legacy of the Void build remains prevalent, especially when looking at Shadow Crash, which is simply not viable currently, and Surrender to Madness. Now, Surrender to Madness will most likely be pretty strong again with your 4-piece bonus, but for most of the progression during Tomb of Sargeras, which is what patch 7.2.5 is all about, you will want to be running your regular Legacy of the Void build, so Twist of Fate, along with Lingering Insanity, Auspicious Spirits, and of course the new Mindbender, and finally Legacy of the Void. Apart from these important talents, you will typically want to run Mind Bomb and Body and Soul, which offer you the most utility for PvE content in their respective tier. Now, this talent build will literally not change for any boss in the Tomb of Sargeras, no matter if it's single target or multi-target. When using Surrender to Madness, the only thing that would be changing is Reaper of Souls instead of Lingering Insanity in order to maintain Surrender to Madness longer during your execute. In Mythic Plus dungeons, you will still want to use Misery for lower keys, but other than that, your talent build will essentially never be swapped around. Sand Lane can be used once you're at over 13,000 haste, but the chances of that happening, especially early on this patch, are pretty slim, so that is not a viable option. Also, you will be using Fortress of the Mind if you have the legendary new Shadow Priest ring. When it comes to a rotation, once more we see little to no real change. With the new 2 set, however, comes a newly found importance to Mind Flay and Mind Blast, and with the new 4 set comes even more relevance to staying in Void form for as long as you possibly can. Your priorities won't change though. To get into Void form, you should still use your Mind Blasts and Mind Flay if your Mind Blast is on cooldown, and once in Void form, your priority list is still Void Bolt, then Mind Blast, then Shadow Word Death, and then Mind Flay. This is assuming that your targets are of course dotted with Vampiric Touch and Shadow Word Pain, as those should always be placed on your target the moment you start a fight. If an ad does not live longer than 5 seconds, don't bother using Shadow Word Pain for anything else except proccing Twist of Fate, and if the target does not live longer than 7 seconds, don't bother using Vampiric Touch on it. The importance of Mind Flay during Void form is important to highlight, however. As it buffs your Mind Blast, you want to be sure to ramp it up to the maximum amount of stacks during its use. Don't let this stop you from using Mind Blast if you are close to dropping out of Void form, but on multi-target fights, where you have enough Insanity generation to delay your Mind Blast until it is completely buffed, you should definitely do so. Keep in mind that this also increases its Insanity generation, so the delay will actually make it worth your time. Now, if you want to know more about your legendaries, I've made a complete video about which legendaries you should use, so you should definitely check that out, and the link for it is in the description. But essentially, Zephyrs Secret is your best legendary, along with the belt. Alternatively, the shoulders are strong as well as Pridus, and for single target scenarios, even the new ring. Ultimately though, Cephas and your belt are the 2 legendaries you most certainly want to aim for, so if you have those, good on you. Most legendaries actually help you to maintain your Void form longer, so even if you don't have those, a legendary that will help you to maintain your Void form will generally be a good thing. When it comes to what the new tier set combination is and which one you want to use, you most certainly want to equip the legs, the chest, and the helmet, but the 4th part is entirely up to you. It would be a good idea, for example, to equip the gloves, which leaves you with the cloak and the shoulders for your tier 19 2-piece, as this leaves you with extra Insanity generation. Be sure to only use your tier 19 2-piece if your items proc on a high enough competitive Warforged level, as otherwise it wouldn't really be worth using. The fact that you'll ideally be wearing the belt and Cephas is perfect for this scenario as well, as both belts and rings will not interfere with your tier bonus. All in all, the Shadow Priest seems relatively strong currently and pretty solid, and seems a lot stronger again now that we are at the beginning of new content, which is where the spec has always been at its strongest. I do have a few concerns though when thinking about the times when everyone is going to have their set bonuses and mythic gear is distributed throughout the entire raid. With higher item level, maybe anything ranging from 940 to 950, we will most likely see a power shift in the class again, but whether or not this will be a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen. If anything changes dramatically once more, I will be sure to let you all know of course, but until then, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this updated guide, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more of my content. Now as always, have a good one my friends, and I will see you all in the next one.